Okay.
Recording in progress.
Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our March OSAC meeting. Everyone has had a chance to look at the agenda, but are there any changes? I guess we can start first with, let's start with our roll call. Okay. All right, getting ahead of myself.
We have Amber Greaves
Here.
Christy Burbank here, Jeffrey Wade
Right here.
Joanne Maneri. I don't know if she's online, so she's not here. Karen Noisy,
Yes.
Michael McDonald.
Yep.
Rita Trainer online, she's here. Todd Gleason
Here.
Tracy Bain
Here.
And then we have Leslie Clark here, me, and Mike Foster is here. Yes.
Okay, thank you,
Thank you.
Carrie. And so everyone has had a chance to look at the agenda. Are there any recommendations or changes before we proceed? I'm seeing none. Okay, so next up is our public comment, and this is a great opportunity for those in our community to chime in online or in person with any ideas that they have that are OSAC related. Unfortunately, it is not a discussion, but certainly we really enjoy feedback that we could potentially include in future agenda items. It's limited to 5 minutes. Curious, I'm not seeing any in this room. Are there any public comments online? No. All right, let's move on to our OSAC discussion items. We'll begin with staff updates. Turn it over to you, Leslie and Park.
I have some quick ones. Cody Ridge, the parking lot, we've redesigned that with an option for 12 spaces instead of 24. That is going to be an update going to the town council on April the 12th, if anybody feels like tuning in. But they are moving forward with the access permit, and it's just a process. So the good news is the CDOT folks are okay with us pushing all the millings on the site over to their side.
Yeah.
We're bringing in fresh, nice, clean millings. And we get ready to do that.
And on that note, so later on in the agenda, we're going to talk about Coyote Ridge, but there was a great idea from Tracy. But if we're going to talk about Coyote Ridge and some of these amenities that are going into place, later on in this session, we're going to talk about what else should we be thinking about. So hold that thought and we'll come back to it. But, you know, in line with our master plan, where does our focus as a committee need to be? Back to you. Sorry, Leslie.
No, that was good. The First Avenue pedestrian bridge project has kicked off. Mostly they've been doing bank stabilization, putting in silt fence, that kind of stuff. They did do a bird inventory study to make sure there were no active nests in the area. So that's good. They are going to be taking down maybe half a dozen trees. None of them are really big ones. Most of them are smaller snags, but there will be some that need to come down to make room for that bridge abutment. And they're going to be starting to pour the caissons for the bridge on Monday. So eventually they will have a detour under the tunnel. So people will have to exit before they get to the tunnel if they're coming from the east, or before like from Rogers Farm, they won't be able to travel north directly. And they'll have signs up helping people, but it'll be a little bit of a process. We have a lot of bike traffic that goes through there.
I have 2 questions on that. One, who does the bird study? And then 2, how long will the project take roughly?
The project is going to take probably till the end of June, so it's long for them to do this. That includes everything: the bridge, the trail, all that. Mount High Flood District hired a consultant to do the bird study, and I'll have to get back with you.
I'm just curious. Yeah,
they have a go-to resource for that. I'm just not sure. I can't remember who it was. the work along Coal Creek, that Team Rubicon did, I have reached out to, one, we still have some cleanup to do there. There's still piles on the ground, so we are working on getting those removed. And then I reached out to Mile High Flood District, and they are very interested in helping us revegetate the area. So I don't know exactly what that looks like, probably help funding just plant material. And then Pari also reached out to Friends of Coal Creek, and I think they're willing to help us with volunteers and sourcing some of that and helping determine where the plant should go. So a lot of it is not necessarily right in the creek bank, but on what they would call the overflow area, where some of those, the majority of the trees that we took down.
Can I just say something?
Mhm.
That was a very, that was a big setback for wildlife, right? I mean, we took a lot of habitat out down there. And I understand that there are many agendas, you know, many reasons that these things happen, and it was actually driven by Parks and Rec, all of those things. But we lost a lot of habitat that will take a long time to restore. So I'm very glad to hear we're talking about restoration. I do think we have to do it relatively quickly to avoid a lot of noxious weeds coming in there, because there's a lot of bare dirt down there. So, we're also doing the same thing along Rock Creek. And again, I feel like as with our responsibility for wildlife, we need to acknowledge that that was a pretty big hit on both fronts. Not as big as when we completely rerouted Coal Creek, whatever it was, a decade ago. We got all those cottonwoods. But it was a pretty big hit. And so I just needed to say that. It's also caused a fair amount of frustration. It's made me think a lot about what's our best method for influencing decisions. You know, we put together a dead tree, you know, in a snag document, say that was completely ineffective. So, I understand, right? I mean, I get it different. We have different counsel, all kinds of things. But anyway, it's caused a lot of introspection, a lot of thinking, and a lot of frustration, I think, on some level. So I just thought that needed to be on the record.
I'm glad that you did. And I think as a team, you know, there is an agenda item coming up soon about issues for town council. But I think we as a team need to think about this in terms of how can we better influence town council. I mean, we have our liaisons, I get that. But in terms of just educating town council as well as our community, and what are those mechanisms? Is it going before town council for public comment? And if we do that, which I personally care, thinks we should, we need consensus for the entire group to say, yes, this is something we want to do. Yeah.
I thought I understood from one or two meetings ago that the vegetation that was going to be cut down over there presented a hazard to people. So are things being cut down that are not hazards?
Mm-hmm.
Did somebody misidentify those as being hazards? Or what? If we got a dying tree that could injure or kill people, it
Needs to come back.
it needs to be.
Safety is always paramount. Yes.
But that's, I take it from your comment, that's not what you see going on.
I will address this from my perspective, right?
Yeah.
And obviously the town could say something different. My perspective, some of the land that got cleared it's not land that's accessible to. So I don't believe that there was a safety hazard for much of the, a lot of that. Also, it was a lot of, and I understand that there are conflicting priorities. I get that, right? I mean, fire, I understand. But there were a lot of dead trees that are great habitat, right? And I don't know that they were more or less of a fire hazard. I can't assess that. But the only thing that I can say is that some of this property was not property that isn't open to the public. That's my understanding. And I believe my understanding it ended up being a bit more of a quote clear cut. I mean, it wasn't a clear cut, but more taken out than maybe my perception of the project was. I mean,
And I appreciate those comments and, I think there are definitely varying opinions.
I'm sure there are.
But I think it comes down to being a balance, and we just need to work on how we get maybe a better balance or a better understanding of that, so.
And to our staff liaison, I would simply say that, yes, this committee and with the help of volunteers, we have created these phenomenal summaries of really the importance of dead trees and maintenance, and we understand there's a balance between recovering from martial fire and not wanting to see things, and then preserving habitat. But that's where, you know, we're gonna be coming towards town council to understand we need that priority to put into place. Otherwise, we're a park committee, you know.
Yeah, and for example, the dead trees paper that was done,
Yeah,
and you or somebody.
I read it about
right?
6 months ago.
Yeah, and so
Fortunately.
what happens between the point where you present that and the decision was made to kind of, because I agree with you, to go as far as we did, and I'm a fire victim, right?
Right,
So
you are.
But once you're educated on
The value.
the habitat and the impact that they have if you cut down things or you clear things, it's, I think people will understand, right? I think they will see it correctly, but I guess it's tracing it through. How do we do a better job? Because I don't know how much better you could do on educating on the dead tree study or the position that was put in front of the town council. So I don't know, like, what happens from that point that we go from A to B.
I think it's immediacy.
That's
Personally, I think we need to be thinking about what issues the town council is discussing, you know, at any given moment.
Yeah.
And making our position on those things clear at that time,
Mhm.
because, you know, 6 months passes and it's just not top of mind.
Yeah.
They're getting a lot of pressure on the
New
other
council
side.
members.
New council
New
members.
councilors, yeah.
I mean, I get it, right? I mean,
Yeah.
I understand, right? That there are people, one, who don't think about it in terms of wildlife habitat, I
Yeah.
get that. And who are very scarred from the extremely scarring event. So
But do we even know that came into play there?
I think my
That's the
understanding
question is, how do we follow what happened from the point where we presented that information to the point the decision was made?
Yeah.
And what were the thoughts of it, the town council and voting in, and did, because it's a great point, the timing of it.
Yeah.
Did they have that? Did they have public input on, please cut this down because it scarred me?
Right.
It's scarring me looking at it.
Right.
It'd just be interesting to know that. I think it'd just be interesting.
I
to
mean,
know that
we have some
information.
wonderfully enthusiastic volunteers in
Mhm.
Team Rubicon. But this is a lesson learned perhaps for town staff and
Yeah.
town management. But what does our town need? Because it's not.
Yeah.
It's not our mayor. I'm going,
Sure. Oh, no.
but in terms of, how can we make sure that the town is ready to bring these volunteers on and still be able to harness it,
Yeah.
right?
And take the input that's been given from all the different
Right,
perspectives
exactly.
into that organization that's
Yeah.
doing this.
Because we want volunteer
Yeah.
support. That was wonderful.
Oh, yeah.
Mhm.
And just some clarity, was this clearing work done as part of the bridge work that's getting done?
No,
Or was it-
it's always-
Oh, okay.
It actually, it's been in the pipeline since right after the fire. And we have had residents who are like, when are you gonna remove those trees? When are you gonna remove those trees? So it took us this long to set up the volunteer effort. But we tried to go through and identify habitat to preserve. Unfortunately, I think it was a little overdone, and their method did require that to get the trees out further into the property, they had to make a path. So that probably ended up taking out more than the trees that were identified to take out. But, lessons learned.
And I
Yeah.
think the emphasis on this is, I think the event was a success in some ways that I'm sure the town council would applaud. But I think for our committee's takeaway would be, we want town council to know a lot was lost.
Yeah.
And we need support to go forward with recovery operations.
Leslie, was it the same crew and the same guideline applied on that Rock Creek tree removal? Or is that a
No,
different group?
so every year we work with Mount High Flood District and they have flood mitigation jurisdiction in both Rock Creek and Fort Creek. So, they walk with staff along that area and identify trees that either they feel are flood hazard. If they're any kind of hazard that we feel if they're near, they're not, in good health and they're near a trail or
Yeah.
whatever. So that's a different process and that is every year. So every spring we have that opportunity. So, maybe we put that on our calendar for, next fall to think about how do we go through and make sure that, the trees they identify and that we say, okay, are in line with OSAC as well. So we can think about a method to do that.
I appreciate that, because it does, I mean, I live right there, I'm down there all the time. And it feels like the clear cutting this year has been more extreme than in past years. So I've been, it's been this, just keeps hitting me, every time I go for a walk.
And
It's like,
it is more extreme and part of what's playing into that is we had trees that were damaged by the fire, but it's taken them 2.5, 3 years to actually get to the point where, okay,
Yes.
now they are a hazard or, they need to come down. So it's combination.
Who actually does the identifying and the cutting? Is it town employees or is that contractors?
The cutting itself is done by a vendor hired by Mount High Flood District. The identification is done combination of town staff and representatives from Mile High.
Yeah, I've seen cases before where contractors get paid per tree with a built-in incentive to cut more than
Yeah.
what might be advisable. Is that,
Would
do
it,
you know whether they get paid per tree or?
No, they get paid, I think, on a daily rate.
And then we also have amazing volunteers.
yeah,
Who've worked with town staff, with their subject matter expertise and habitat and who've also been able to work with town staff to identify. Which is great.
Yeah.
mhm.
Or I totally interrupted
No,
you.
you're fine. I just wondered if, I don't know what the guidelines are around this, but would it help in the identification piece if we had an OSAC member?
I mean, I
And
think
we
that would be
helped
a
identify
potential,
Yeah.
for continuity.
recommendation that comes out of this committee.
And you know
I
what,
think that'd be good.
honestly, I mean, we're spending time on this. Perhaps we make this a standing agenda item.
Mhm.
And
Could be good.
maybe we even have someone on our committee that wants to take a lead on this.
Mhm.
And I'm looking around, who would take this to champion those opportunities to work with town staff.
Mhm.
And even,
That's a great idea.
yeah. Do we want to do that?
And so are you saying,
Standing
committee member,
agenda,
no, I got that part,
and
and the committee member to work with the staff.
Be like the
around,
liaison.
balance clearing and.
yeah,
Habitat preservation sub.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say.
Yeah.
we'll do that. And that would be an obvious liaison work with some of the things you're already plugged into. You just need to
And-
let us
and
know in that
help.
case if there's an alternate. Is there anyone else who wants to help Tracy?
I'll look.
Love that.
Fantastic. Look at that.
Oh, good for you.
synergy. Awesome. Leslie, other step updates?
So.
We're on time here.
You may have seen some work being done along McCaslin. They're getting ready to work on that water main that's going in.
Oh, that's what that is.
So, the actual work, digging, putting in the water line, I don't think is gonna happen until April, but they're grubbing up the, the turf and getting ready for that, and putting some fence up.
It's so loud.
Is it,
Oh, my goodness.
is it?
Yes.
Over near Overreach.
Yeah, right behind my house.
Mhm.
And that's the point, is they are going to have to close the trailhead for 1 or 2 days. So I don't know
Okay.
when that's gonna be yet. They're gonna try and minimize it as much as possible.
Mormon Rush is gonna have to be closed.
Just south of Overreach. For the work.
They're gonna go all the way up and over the hill, so it's gonna continue.
Probably in
But they're
April
just
or
south, is that what you're saying?
Mhm.
South.
in April.
Yes. But right now they do have equipment out and they're starting to fence off. They took down the Orman Roche sign and
Yeah, I noticed that the other day. That's funny. I didn't even.
Yeah,
I was like,
yeah. Also, I responded to a request from Coal Creek Crossing residents. They are concerned about a growing prairie dog population. It's, let's see.
Oh, I know people over there. Who do I need to talk to?
It's on county property and it's back behind like where the self-storage and some of that is.
The Guardian place?
Yeah, no,
That, isn't that Guardian? Yeah, that's,
but, oh, I think I sent you a map. Do you wanna try and put a map up? I think I emailed it to you. Anyway, I'm gonna meet with the county, Kari and I next Friday, just to look at it, cause the residents really want a prairie dog fence, but they're not entirely sure that's gonna do the job, so you can kind of see this is where the colony is, way down here. This is town property, this is open space, but, okay, this is an existing fence line, sort of, it's maybe not 100% continuous. So there's still a lot of buffer between this prairie dog colony and Coal Creek Crossing, but they are concerned it's gonna continue to migrate that way, so anyway, we're gonna have that conversation.
I'm happy to be involved.
Okay,
Works out.
I'll
Yeah.
ping you when they set up the
That is-
meeting.
County property though, correct?
It's
The prairie dog education
Yeah.
area specifically for that.
the bright green is town
Right.
and this is county, so yes, this is county.
I don't know why I'm just so confused on this map. What's just,
This is Coal Creek.
okay,
This is West Coal Creek Drive.
okay, yeah.
You know where the town hall's down here?
Yes, okay,
Okay, and this is Coal Creek Crossing
gotcha.
there. So it's not like, they're not in their backyard yet.
Yeah.
But they wanted us to reach out and
Okay.
inquire about maybe what'll work to keep them from migrating too far.
Yeah, so I think if I remember, I can't remember which plan of ours it was in, but I thought that there was some of that area from the county that was designated as prairie dog, like area, prairie dog education. So.
I mean, it's one of the best fire breaks we have.
It is.
So it's not necessarily a bad thing.
Right.
They just see it growing. And that tends to make people a little different.
Dispersing because they don't migrate. So I think that's an important word to.
yeah, it's an
They
it's
don't
an
not
education.
migrate, yeah.
Yeah.
But I'll definitely
If
let
they
you
come-
know and see if you're available and then we'll come back and keep you all informed. Those are all my updates.
Hard.
I just have program updates for this part and then I'll talk about migratory and national trails day later. So just to kind of, we're nearing the end. I know April is gonna be, well, May, that's when the start of like summer programs are gonna start ramping up. So just a quick reminder, like last month, just of the programs that we have going, like the Eagle Ranger program, that's running till the end of March.
Which program?
Eco Ranger. And then we have the Owl Prowl, that's gonna be in April, I think April 11th with Peter, he's leading that one. And then our bird watching one, that one's almost full. So we have, I think, 3 spots left, 17 out of 20.
What day is that?
That one, bird watching is gonna be the 30th of March.
This email just went out too today, right? The one I'm looking at, that's all the updates.
I think so, yeah. 'Cause
Just letting others know, I mean, I looked at it
Okay, so it's there.
at like 2 o'clock today.
Yeah, I saw, yeah. I didn't know that was happening. I was told that today. And then nature journaling, one more this month and then one in April. So, I think that's pretty much it for programs, and I'll talk more later.
Thank you, both of you. Next up on the agenda is our open space management plan, goals, definitions, and survey questions. And,
Did you guys already answer Rita?
Oh, I did,
Okay, okay,
but she doesn't always get my email. Yeah, she's not in there.
okay. I'm just seeing her.
hi, Rita. So we have this followed by open space classification feedback for town's comprehensive plan. So they're kind of both very similar, but if you remember last month, we talked about how do we want to engage the public and what kind of questions would we ask? And so that's the first part. And I'm curious if anyone has had a chance to think about that or.
I read it.
And I just wanna introduce our consultant, who's here.
For starter.
So I think you met most of the team here for the first one, but, Todd and Jeff spent a lot of, good effort looking through these, and we wanted, to make sure you all took a look at some of their recommendations, and then
Todd, there's more of the credit I had, competing demands on my time, and it's not relaxing.
Can we jump into the survey questions, Sarah?
I think that's what we're trying to bring up.
I do have a few
suggestions.
Should I jump in?
Sure.
So the question about what ecological improvements are most important to you, I thought those were pretty good. The one that I had a question mark by is wildlife management. Because are we managing wildlife? I mean, we have a wildlife encouragement team. So the term management to me and that's
a little strong.
It is strong. Is that what we're going for, and is that an improvement? Because I don't necessarily see, I mean, the prairie dogs and putting a fencing in, yes, that's more management, but by and large, I'm wondering if we're asking about improvements related to wildlife, if that might be more from the angle of creating and protecting habitat and accessibility for wildlife. Because I feel like most people, I mean, this is from my angle, but I think if most people were to think about ecological improvements and wildlife, that what we're going for is really, quality of habitat and accessibility versus managing, right? I mean, that we gather from our wildlife encouragement and the data we get.
So do you support?
Well, if we're asking in the context of this question, what ecological improvements are most important to you? I would say we take out wildlife management and maybe have something like, wildlife habitat accessibility or,
Protection maybe of
wildlife habitat protection. Yeah.
And on both of those words, I mean, I just wanted to pull up our own committee mission,
Yeah.
for example.
Or what about wildlife encouragement?
And yeah, wildlife encouragement on our mission.
Of our group.
Our mission is to acquire, conserve, and provide stewardship of natural open space lands and associated resources to promote and protect wildlife.
There you go.
To ensure public enjoyment and appropriate recreation and to conduct relevant educational programs. So protection sounds great, encouragement sounds great. Yeah.
First of all, can we correct that very first question? That what trails?
Oh, yes, it's not tails.
I figured there was some serious editing.
Yeah, wildlife
I like the
encouragement.
tails. Oh, wildlife.
We want to say anything about the habitat, because we're talking about bird habitat enhancement. So, I would love to see, and pollinator enhancement, so what could, if we can say wildlife encouragement, but are we also talking about habitat?
Yeah,
Wildlife encouragement and habitat protection?
Oh, I like that.
yeah, that sounds good.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When I hear the word wildlife encouragement, I'm thinking, are we out there like, oh, I want to birdies, I want to bird dogs?
So.
Yeah.
To that,
But I mean,
crazy if you wanna.
general public may not.
Yeah, they may not.
More like monitoring or something. Well, the word that you, I can't remember, there were two words that were in the mission statement.
Promote and protect. That's good.
Wildlife, promote and protect wildlife.
Yeah,
I think that's,
That's
that
pretty
means
clear.
more action
Yeah,
oriented.
agreed.
I think that's what we're trying to achieve. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like wildlife and habitat protection.
Can we ask people if they'd like to see more wildlife in Superior?
Well, I think
that
if you say promote, though, if you say promote and protect, it kind of encompasses everything.
Okay, promote wildlife and habitat protection.
Perfect.
Okay.
Write that down.
I know.
I think I have a sense of habitat protection now that I didn't have 2 years
Yeah.
ago. When we talked about
Mhm.
dead cottonwood trees, I used to think, get those things out of here. And but we asked that question just as promoting habitat. Wildlife habitat. That, I would think most people would not make that connection, or
Right.
a lot of
I think
people.
you're right, Jeff. Yeah.
Any other?
Yeah, so I'm sorry, I'm just jumping through the three I have. That's okay. And then on the next, so we have on there grazing with cattle. And Mike, I probably want your input on this one. This one is not in our, so like this is county. Correct, like the cattle grazing is county.
Yes.
But if we're asking,
Not strictly,
not strictly, okay,
and that's why I put it in here as.
okay. So here,
So we have easements that allow for cattle
Right.
grazing, even though we don't cattle graze. So Coyote Ridge, the easement there allows for cattle
So you
grazing.
could bring in the equivalent of goat rows with cattle.
But-
to raise that.
But I think the general temperature of our residents is, the goats are great, the cows are a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, the cattle become negative when it closes our trails.
but here's the other thing, and this is why I'm wondering. Why should we have that on there? If it's sort of in our purview, but what is not in our purview are the grazing strategies. And so if we're relating this to wildfire mitigation, like I have faith that whatever, whoever's managing the herd, the county, whoever is doing the right things, but we don't control the timing of the grazing. We don't control whether there's overgrazing happening. And if there are, then those have significant potential impacts for cheatgrass growing, which cheatgrass is highly.
But we could though, if the town decided to use Coyote Ridge though. Right?
Well,
If somebody challenged us, but I get your point.
Yeah, so
We're not talking about county land. This would be just our open space.
Right.
So what will accompany the survey questions will be a map, so people clearly understand. We're talking about town property. I'm fine taking the cattle out.
And so what I think people don't know is like how you raise the cattle is absolutely relevant to this question. Like if there were overgrazing or the timing of it was bad, then there is that potential for more invasives that are highly flammable to be introduced. And if we're asking people like, what do you think about grazing with cattle? I don't know that people would necessarily know that. And that's not a topic we even talk about very much.
Right.
But if we're trying to get a litmus test, I just don't know if that's enough within our purview to ask about.
I think you're spot on, and maybe we take out the cattle and just talk about.
Yeah, but
Goat grazing.
even if we take things out, I guess the question would maybe to you, Carter, and to the team. How would this look on a survey? Is it this question with all of these bullets underneath? Because I would imagine any of these could actually generate some emotional
The
outrage.
prairie dog one for sure.
Prairie dog.
That's gonna be.
For one.
Well, and
Yeah,
I
just-
on that
I-
as well.
Yes, how do we do that? Cause it's, some might be okay, so how does a person answer
See,
this
I
question?
think it's okay to ask. I don't think there's any problem with getting the sentiment back and seeing what people think.
But will this be an
I mean, what we
opportunity
do
for
with it,
someone
the whole-
to write? Is it a written
I
response?
think this one was just the.
There is an other on the next whole.
Yeah.
But will people have the opportunity to say, hey, I don't want prairie dogs, but,
Where it says, okay, you have an open-ended response, we can
and
limit.
I think that's good.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think the multiple, option response is really helpful. It gives you that sort of, graph data at the end of the day.
Yeah.
Others, great, if you want to leave an open-ended opportunity there, you can. What we find pretty effective is just having a last question that says, is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah.
Effective at all to. Like goats are not native, cattle is not native, prairie dogs are native. So would it be less to put in there, like grazing with non-native goats or grazing with non-native cattle? I would say, if we're gonna put prairie dogs in that one, that we also keep that as grazing and clipping by native prairie dogs. Instead of introduce, and I have 4 comments on that because that implies a whole thing.
Mhm.
We're not in, there's already prairie dogs in some of our open space, so, I would say for the prairie dogs, like grazing and clipping by native prairie dogs.
Yeah.
But
I think
cattle
that
and
makes it
goats-
more specific.
Yeah, but cattle and goats are non-native, and I don't know if that, resonates with people or needs, people need to think about that, cause, I don't know, that's just.
I think adding native to the prairie dog question.
Yeah,
Kind of implies that maybe the others aren't, but I
yeah,
mean, cows, no, buffalo, yes. But
Let's do bison.
obviously, that's-
yeah. And I think if we leave that in there, maybe like for the prairie dogs, it's grazing and clipping by native.
okay, I like that.
Yeah. And like, we're gonna, yeah. Yeah, and then I guess that leads me to the next one, the question about what are your thoughts on relocating prairie dogs to create open space? That one, I think if we're going to have a question about that at all, it needs to be highly contextualized, because with this, if I were just reading this, and I know this is a placeholder and a draft we're working on. If I were just reading this as is, I'd be like, oh my gosh, they're gonna start bringing into all the, I think of all the open space. But really, our only option in our prairie dog playbook, our only option right now, if we need to translocate or have an option for translocating prairie dogs on private property, if it gets developed, or let's say we have an issue, like prairie dogs, they're starting to migrate too close to whatever, not migrate, disperse, closer to whatever conflict zone. Our only option that we have vetted and is in our playbook is the 11 acres of the hardy list on the site. That's all we're working with. So, and that's in our playbook. It's super specific. If we were to ever offer that as a site for translocation of prairie dogs, it's 11 acres of that site on the south side of the creek bed. So there's already prairie dogs on the other side of that Colton trailhead. So it's literally like it'd be in line with that. There's already habitat. So I wonder, do we need to be asking about this? I mean,
You're just saying if you do ask it, just provide a little education as a lead in.
well, it's
before
like,
you ask the
are we
question.
gonna ask the question, what are your thoughts on the potential for translocation of prairie dogs to 11 acres on the Hartney Listoka site? Do we need to be asking that? Because that's the only option we're even talking about.
I mean,
Does that make
it's
sense?
up to this group, what we want, what kind of information we want to gather from the survey, and if we're not, I mean, if prairie dog translocation is such a specific thing that when and if that
And when-
happens, we do the public outreach at that point.
That's what I'm thinking, yeah, unless I mean, we kind of get a litmus test if we're leaving like grazing and clipping by native prairie dogs in the previous question. I guess that's a little bit more of a litmus test of, in general, what do people think of that as a strategy?
And we can always provide like a QR code to your paper on the prairie dogs. But the majority of people aren't gonna do that.
No, and that's why I'm like, I feel like this kind of question would open a huge can of worms. It's not even.
That would be.
Yeah. Exactly, yeah.
Then let's
Strike
Well,
it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you?
Mhm.
Do you guys feel, and I don't want to start without, I know we've talked about before, we want the public input around certain things, and we asked the question with Coyote Ridge too, so do you think taking that out still gets at what we would like for info on that? Knowing that in the future, if we need it, we'll have a more specific thing around. Yeah.
Proposal or suggestion.
So,
I liked Rita's addition. I thought that was good.
yeah, I mean, unless Boulder County had any plans to relocate, but they would be contacting us. If they would be translocating on any properties that we have easements, their easements.
Oh, they would.
Yeah.
Give us a
So we don't need to ask those relatives.
I don't think so.
There's some words and phrases in there that we use commonly and your staff would use commonly. I don't know how people throughout Superior would understand it. What does excess fuel load, is that a phrase that most people understand in the way that we understand it? Is weed infestation, is mitigation, because mitigation to most people means getting your house cleaned up after a fire. Is that the level of language we want to use?
Reduce fire risk. And I think that
But I think excess fuel loads have been talked about a lot. Maybe I've just paid attention to them, but I feel like it's been talked about a lot in the communication from the town, the county, I think it's clear and written fine personally.
Parentheses.
It does, it tells what it is, yes, good point.
Elaborated there.
Yeah, good point. I think it's fine.
My only thought, this gets back to the conversation you were having earlier, is dead branches, trees and debris also provide wildlife
Mm-hmm.
That's true.
for insects and critters. And so, I mean.
We could put qualifier on there that says, removal of excess fuel load with while
Or responsible.
While preserving habitat
Yeah.
preserving.
or with habitat considerations.
Yes,
There you go.
I like that. What are we not asking that you guys want information about?
I didn't think of anything. It was very, very rich.
People like short surveys, so
Mhm.
the shorter, more concise, the better
Mhm.
response.
Can you go back to the open space question, provide a map, okay.
A lot of this is just like, how do people use what we currently have?
Yeah. I like it. Okay,
Yeah, it's great.
so what are our next steps?
So, I'll work with Carter, we'll take all your feedback into consideration. We'll get this uploaded into our shakespeare.com and hopefully get it out in the month of April. And we could even have a QR code maybe at Arbor Day.
Oh, that'd be great.
We're still open if we can keep the survey open till the 26th of April. I think that works. And just help promote that. We can even put some yard signs at the trailhead locations for folks to get feedback. I think the next discussion item on definitions is gonna be a little bit more Difficult, I don't know, challenging, a little bit more challenging maybe.
So let's move to that topic. We're 6 minutes behind on schedule. I just say this, if we get to talking and we feel like we need more time, do we have next month to talk about this, or are we looking?
I think so,
Okay.
I think so, and you could, yeah, I think so. I mean, I wanna take advantage of Carter being here, if there
Yeah.
are things people want to verbalize, just that,
If I want to talk about it, but how about we just keep looking at the clock, and if it's 7 o'clock, we move on, that way we're not, because we've got more topics and I don't want to get too far behind. So I know that you all have been talking a lot about definitions, specifically Todd and Jeff. And so, is there anything in particular that you're wanting to?
No, well, it actually came from Carter Town asking us to come up with to try and clean up the definition of what's open space, which varies from everything from Coyote Ridge to, you know, the little common spaces with, you know, paved paths between neighborhoods to kind of the viewed corridors. So we kind of collaborated on a set of definitions for natural open space corridors and trying to make a better distinction between what we think of as open space and parks, you know, landscape mode, you know, spaces with amenities for playgrounds and so on. So that's what this, I think that's what resulted in that document that Leslie sent out.
In so many town documents, there is a distinction, some kind made between open space and designated open space. And I think I understand what it means, but I wouldn't not expect most people to. I think usually when we say open space, even if we capitalize open space, it still seems like just any land like the ravine that goes across from Indiana to McCaslin up there by El Dorado. That's, I say that because it's in my neighborhood. It sure looks like open space, but it's not designated open space.
it's not zoned.
It's not zoned.
Well, it's not zoned open space now, it's zoned open space recreation, or it may not even be zoned.
So was the purpose of, so we put the definitions, the two different types of open space in a separate document. Was that just so we could focus on refining those definitions and then they go back in the work plan? Is that, because they're repeated in there, right?
I think that's,
So just finding.
yes, I think that's what we were intending. I
Okay.
mean, we're working on the
Okay.
management document as a whole.
Yeah,
Leslie asked to bring this to the committee.
okay.
I just pulled out both pages.
And you're right, that's like into our work plan, but more importantly, it'll fold into the open space master plan.
And then that's really what.
And then I think what is critical, and I imagine you haven't done this yet, and we as a committee need to think about it, but where else are definitions being created within the town of Superior where we need to be included? Because turns out master plans get done every few years. So we need to make sure that if planning commission is doing a town plan, that we're in sync with the definitions they use.
And I think I got some direction from Lisa on that the comprehensive plan is really gonna reference park and open space, so selectively. They're not differentiating between what people call open space or native or any of that. It's just gonna be parks and open space, which gets us about 800 acres. And that's when I think they keep referring to the percentage of town that's parked in open space and that 800 acres, which is comprehensive of both the developed parks and the undeveloped areas.
That's interesting to me because they're handled, so managed so differently. Like, so I understand the comprehensive plan is not on a really detailed level, but on the other hand, the Coal Creek area is already zoned open space natural, right? I would have hoped that that had been taken into consideration when we started planning what sort of cuts and things we were going to be doing down there. And I think we need to think about that in terms of these documents, you know, and how as a management plan we go forward with what these definitions mean.
And I think that's where we have to pick up, you know, where the
Pick up where they're
comprehensive
not.
plan leaves off.
Yeah.
Like, yes, we have all this space that's open and can be enjoyed by residents, but the different categories, you know, we have the zoning, the open space natural, and the open space recreation, which is really the developed parks. So we already have those two, but do we want some subcategories under there, like this is, so that you can say, this kind of space we manage this way. So if it's a open space, natural area with a wildlife corridor, maybe that gets this kind of a treatment, or if it's, open space.
Tell me something.
Some recreation, like a trail.
Well, and I think our open space natural allows for trails, trailheads, signage, seating, and access, so parking if need be. But I think traditionally we've said no to shelters, restrooms. What's gonna come up is art soon.
So tell me something, I know that comprehensive plans tend to be very robust and they take time to develop. But that on the table, whose plan is gonna be published first, the town of Superior's or ours? And the reason why I asked, the reason why I asked that then is if the town's comprehensive plan is gonna say park and open space, I don't really like that. What I would,
I don't even. Yeah.
what I would rather than, if they're gonna do that, I would prefer for the town of Superior to say, for more information about what these definitions mean, please see the town of Superior open space. Something like that.
Open space management.
Management, yes.
And I think we have that commitment that they will reference
Okay.
our plan.
Is there any chance of getting the comprehensive plan to distinguish between open space and the recreation developed space?
I mean, I think we can ask for whatever we wanna ask for, and they're gonna have to decide at what level do they wanna get
Right.
to the
Right.
nitty gritty. So I think the zoning is already there, that's a land use category, so that already exists, so I think that they're gonna, that's not, it's not unreasonable to ask that they reference open space natural, open space rec.
And that's what we referred to when we were asking for the, whatever our ask was on town 15, right? So we went through that and we recommended whether it was one of those two that they had already pre-classified, yeah.
Correct.
I mean, I'd like to see that, like, I'm sorry, but
Being define open space to death. I mean, and we saw
You
that
did
in
a
our
pretty good job of that.
last meeting. You get in a lot of sticky wickets, but if we're going to be sending out survey questions that are asking people's opinions about different aspects of open space, can we have a map that shows what we mean by open space? You know,
and I think that should be, you know, a full chapter in our management plan of what is open space. Here's a map, and these are the different kinds of things. Because what does concern me about the town of Superior comprehensive plan is if you read it, and we've had wonderful briefings by the team, and I applaud their efforts, but you read them and all of a sudden, man, the grass that's out in front of downtown Superior sign is open space. Well, it's not. And so I do think definitions matter.
So within the open space natural, the open space recreation, and the native grass areas, we talked about some other subcategories of wildlife corridor. Do we need a riparian or aquatic corridor? How do we want to reference those?
I hadn't even considered that until you were talking about it the other day. I think that's fantastic.
And now we have flight corridor.
The flight corridors, yes.
So, I mean, we can, I've already talked to our GIS staff person about how can we overlay the flight corridor.
Yeah.
And the wildlife corridors. And so I already sent him your raptor flight and hunting ground map, so he's kind of trying to noodle that. But what do you think about subcategories?
I like them. I mean, this is our plan, right? I mean, this is a chance for us for anyone who's interested in reading it.
So do we need more? Do you like aquatic, or do we want to call that?
I liked them.
Okay.
Good. I personally, I read it in detail and I thought it was great.
And then we do have some buffer areas, but we'll have to define them.
And then we'll include the flight, right? The flight corridor.
Let's put that on there.
Yeah, and
I had never even, I mean, birds are flying above us all the
I
time.
know,
I didn't even about why,
right,
in what direction.
they're just like airport, just like.
I thought it was really interesting that a lot of those overlapped with paths.
Yeah.
I mean, some people like dropping breadcrumbs or wire.
Yeah, where they see it.
Yeah.
It's interesting.
Okay.
I don't have a good sense of what, the width, I guess, of an aquatic corridor. Obviously, a creek would be, how far.
Well, I
Along the
think there
banks of
would
the
be
creek.
subcategories, so you would have the creek itself and then kind of that riparian area, and then we have wetlands, so there are different components of an aquatic corridor. And maybe corridor isn't even the right word, I don't know, because some of them are gonna be just a point.
This is great work. It is.
Yeah, that was really good.
Everyone doing such a great job.
I mean, cause yeah, maybe the wildlife corridor makes sense, the ways to find it, right, to provide for wildlife movement. I think they all make sense in some ways, but yeah, I'm wondering on this, not like, and we don't need a habitat instead of a corridor. I mean, some of them might be habitats rather than corridors. But then I wanna make 15 categories, right, and then we have to sort through that.
Okay.
Well, and we can refine it year after year too, right? That just can be great.
I mean, we can start off with a broad category and then
If it doesn't work,
we can change it, or we can continue to refine it. What else do we have below? We did reference open space recreation just to say those areas are not the purview of this plan, so.
Yeah.
So Carter, do these definitions work from your perspective? Can you build a management plan around that terminology, or?
Yeah.
Do you see problems?
I wouldn't call them problems. I have maybe a couple questions. So, one of the questions I would have is, what is the distinction between an aquatic corridor and a riparian type of open space act?
I don't think any of these definitions are mutually exclusive. You know, a buffer corridor, the area that you were referring to between Indiana and McCaslin near your house is both, in my mind, both aquatic corridor and a buffer corridor, you know, so.
But like, with all those definitions, don't they have to boil down to, can you mark them on a map? Can we find and define on this particular piece of land, what's an aquatic corridor, what's a riparian, what was the other word? Yeah.
I mean, in some instances, we have that information and some we don't, and it might be that we choose to highlight some and then the others are a work in progress.
There is a I can't remember where the map is now. It's that interactive map that you can drop things in and off. Uses different definitions of open space that are in conflict with this listing. That I think are a bit problematic, they can be fixed, that would be, or made to align better with these definitions, it would be easier.
And that presents some problems, but we might be able to work through them because of how things are zoned and how things are funded, because we get into the class map when if somebody puts a class map next to what we call our landscape class map, which is where the funding comes for the different parcels. It gets a little confusing, but we'll work on the map piece so that it, we can show the open space map. We can show that, then you can turn on the trails, you can turn on the, wildlife corridors, or maybe at some point we have wetlands and you can push the button and wetlands pop up. I think we're not there yet, but we have some of those layers already developed.
And we just hit 7:00. Carter, so as we move on to another subject, before we do that, is there anything that you want us to think about?
So the only other question I would have on these definitions, thanks for asking, is there a need, thinking about the buffer corridor, is there a need to distinguish? I'm thinking also about the Coyote Bridge. There is sort of a third demarcation of residential edges, right? As distinct, maybe, I think they even show in one of those graphics, a roadway. Those are probably managed differently. And so that would be the only thing I would maybe prompt you to think about a little bit is there a, say, a roadway corridor, transportation corridor, however we frame that? And is that different than, does that fall within a buffer corridor similar to, say, a residential corridor? I think those are kind of all things that, like you said, are not mutually exclusive, but in terms of management, are they managed different ways? Is it trash pickup rather than mowing or fire mitigation, right? Depending on where you're at. So I think maybe I'll throw that out.
Okay, so for next meeting, if Todd and Jeff, if you can think about that, and as a team, we can think about that, and we'll pick up this agenda item next month. Is that good? Thank you so much.
Can I have one last question?
Of course.
Going back to the survey. I don't know if this is maybe opening a can of worms, and it's not sexy, but sometimes it's worth asking a question about taxation. Is that something, and it's kind of outside the realm of this, body, although you obviously recommend to council, to the board. So I think it's worth maybe considering,
I wouldn't use the word tax, but maybe funding.
yeah, willingness to support.
We already have a space tax.
Yeah.
Goat raising costs money. Right, is that what you're talking about, like in terms of strategy?
You could distinguish between operational, management and capital, land purchases. I don't want to open that can of worms if it feels like it's maybe more than we need to.
I think we already opened that can of worms when we say, do you support this and this and this and this? For some people, that means, we spending tax money on that. I don't know.
Like I said, I don't want to open that.
Yeah.
Box.
Of
course.
If it's about, I'm afraid of it. I mean, you're just.
And you know what, honestly, I think there is some merit in that myself, because we have the open space tax. Sometimes I wonder if our residents know that.
Yeah.
So there might be value. I don't know, we'll think about it this month, next month. Sorry. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Under this agenda item or the next?
Leslie sent that.
Yeah. I know there's the two items that kind of deal with class applications. Oh, I didn't know if we were talking.
No, we were just talking about the definitions. Okay. So we are now on National Trails Day. And on that, thanks again, Mother, on that, I'm gonna hand it over to you to talk to about National Trails Day and how OSAC can support.
All right, so for National Trails Day, as I'm planning that out, starting to narrow down more of the vendors. I think you guys got the invitation for migratory and National Trail Day. I just sent it out to the group so you guys can see how that looks like. And for the planning process, it's still, I think, I like to say that I'm almost done with planning it, but sometimes I speak too soon and then something comes up. But in terms of vendors, I think we have a good turnout for that. I've been kind of mulling out to see how OSAC can be more involved. I think I mentioned last meeting, instead of being behind the booth, but to get more out into the public, to show face, to talk to people, not just have them come to you, but you can go to them. I think it will be good for you to meet other vendors who are present there, because to meet maybe other committees from different municipalities, you know, like Boulder County was there last year, and I think that would bring a lot of conversations and opportunities and build connection, because we are small, and I'm the only one. It's like I do rely on a lot of outside resources to help us grow, but we also, it's a interchangeable, you know. So I think that will be good. So I was thinking of, I think I mentioned in the pre-meeting about like assigning, not me assigning jobs, but I want you guys to have the choice of what you would like to do in terms of being involved in National Trails Day. This is going to be the same thing for Migratory Bird Day, but this is a very rough draft and I will edit it more, but time slots on here are tentative, and I'll pass this around. So I just wrote down, I think I have, because on the back side, when this paper goes around, I do want you to write your name June 7th, 9-12 at Colton Trailhead. I do want you to write your name on the back if you are attending, because I know some of you might be out of town and things like that. So in order for me to plan it accordingly and to know if you're going to be there, I want to make you feel, you know, useful and giving your efforts that day and in preparation for it. So if you're not going to be there, let me know. But if you are planning on attending, I wrote the date on the top here in case you forget, just write your name on the back. I think everybody got a shirt. I ordered you one. It's coming. And where it's blank right here, it says name. It gives you the job position. So for example, like I do want 2 people at the booths at the same time. I don't want 5 people at the booths because the other 3 can go do other things. And I kind of gave a tentative time slot, so it might change. This is just where my headspace is at now. And then the description on the side here just explains like what I expect you to do if you're at the booth. You're not just snacking or something like that. You know, you're engaging.
You're snacking, yeah.
You can snack, no, but like things like that. I just want to make sure that you understand what you're signing up for. I wrote on the top that make sure that you are sure, like if that's what you want. If you have more questions on what is expected out of that, let me know and I can clarify it for you. And I just put on the top, you're responsible for taking the task of your choosing. I don't have a backup for you unless somebody else steps up and says, hey, I'll cover this for you, or you switch with someone. That's going to be on you if you want to switch. Like, hey, I don't want to be a parking attendant anymore. Can I be at the OSAC booth? Switch with someone. I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Just because I think this will be beneficial. The biggest reason is because these were the gaps that I noticed from last year. And I put too much on myself last year, and I need to be realistic this year because it is growing. And there was more people that attended last year, I believe, closer to, I think 400, we had people showing up. And I can only imagine it continuing to grow. So I need support, and I'm asking for support.
Thanks for asking.
And it's hard for me to ask, so I'm saying it now. Sometimes I think I can do it all.
But let's face it, as a committee, we all those of us who were there tend to be behind the table.
We are.
And we're all excited about every single person who comes by to ask about, you know, the dog versus coyote game or the map of open space.
Right.
But all of us are just, I mean, we have room to spread out.
Yeah.
Question for you.
Yes.
Since, Peter and I will be manning the booth, what would your vision be for my participation in?
You guys will be at the booth because I think it was sufficient last year because you guys shared that booth.
Yeah.
And that was fine. So you're in the clear.
But-
Yeah, they're different.
Yeah.
Wildlife and raptor in one, wildlife encouragement would be in one, OSAC would be in one. So, yeah, I'll pass this around, take a look, read through it. And then if you have questions, let me know. If you see any gaps of like, hey, I don't think this is really necessary, maybe we can do this instead, I'm flexible. I just want to make sure it's efficient and it makes sense. Just because I noticed these gaps last year and it just kind of drove me nuts. And I'm like, okay, now I can do something better next year. So I think I mentioned like the trailhead would be closed the day before this time. So I got permission from county to close it at sunset the day before, and we'll have to post signs, maybe get is it Public Works with that electric sign, probably that, just so people don't go early in the morning and then we have to clear everyone out. That's a big issue. Parking will still be at Town 15, so that will most likely be mowed again right before the event, just to kind of prepare for that.
Awesome.
Any questions on National Trails Day?
Do we have a list of all the trails in Superior?
We have
We'll have that. We'll have trial.
What about the list? Do we have a list?
They're written down.
Yeah, I'm thinking that and encountered this with other recreational things I've done, but there are people who would like to know that they have walked every trail. Just like there are like people who I'm sorry.
I don't think we have names for all this.
We have a trail.
Okay, but for all the trails that we do have names for.
Yeah. Do I think there are very many trails we have
How many
names for?
How many name trails do we have? 40?
No.
Most
of it's not,
Yeah.
most of
How many name trails do we have? 20?
one.
I was gonna say, count them on
We're not
one.
talking about Superior alone, it's not that many. Start to us.
It's not that there
Right.
aren't a lot of trails, right? It's just you don't have names.
Yeah, I mean, that maybe would.
That could be a future project.
Rita and I are working on. I don't want to offend Rita, if you're listening, Rita.
I am,
Yeah.
but there aren't official names.
The spreadsheet for now about all the proposed trails that have been recommended in the past, but they're named by cross streets and locations and pictures. They don't have names.
Yeah. Or letters. Sometimes it's just like Trail L.
Yeah, and Rita's spreadsheets probably doesn't have an inclusive list of the existing trails, right? It's some existing trails, but a lot of trails have been proposed but never realized.
Right. And there's a status on them, there's a status in that file for each trail or section of trail that was proposed. And
I don't think there's a list. You were talking about it the other day.
yeah, there is. There's a list in there, but again, it's not official names like Leslie said.
To encourage the naming of more trails.
Yeah, so this is, for now, let's just go ahead and be prepared to have a trail map for National Trails Day. And we can set up an agenda item for next month and we can call it name trail.
Okay.
Or,
Trail names, yeah.
trail names, okay. It's a good idea, let's talk about it.
Think about a naming convention, just so you're not thinking, oh, I want this to be Sod Trail and Mike Trail. It's like, what?
Oh, I'm in favor of it.
Yeah. But let's,
Like, based on mining, is it based on indigenous communities, is it based on
Critters.
critters?
we're not gonna accomplish this within a month or even 2 months. So
That's a good idea.
let's talk about it next month and we can start thinking about that criteria. I think that would be great. What else on National Trails Day? Let's see.
You can go back to it.
Yeah, I'll come back.
Yeah.
Thank you, Cory. Now, next on the agenda is where we talk about the trails and the open space requests that Boulder County requests every year. It's usually around this time-ish, but we never really got a response from last year. So Leslie, where are we with this?
So I did get an email, back on our trail requests, and remember they had funding available for the first time. Apparently that funding mechanism is being rethought. So, they haven't made any decisions basically at this point on the funding. So, I mean, they got our trail priority requests and that's great, but the funding is still kind of up in the air. And I don't know if, I think what they were trying to do with such little funds was a challenge, so. Because for the whole county, only having the 300K was pretty limited. But I did ask them when they would be ready for our new submissions, and they said, so.
April, okay.
April for the trail and the open space, both. So our recommendations.
Just rerun the same thing.
I mean, that's been successful unless we have a change, unless, you know, if it's still the top three, then it's still the top three.
Yeah, let's do that, and then we can add it as an agenda item depending on where we fall. We can talk about that next month to see.
Does that
What
work
do
with
you
the
think?
time frame for their April?
Yeah, because they haven't even sent out the.
Okay, so it might be that we meet before the deadline, right? So,
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
And I think especially if we're pretty certain it's gonna be the same thing, it's not, that's pretty easy.
Awesome. All right, moving along. Migratory bird day planning, and it's sorry. What do you need? What kind of support?
Yeah.
What kind of support? Yeah.
Same thing, like I mentioned, National Trails Day, this is gonna be for Migratory Bird Day. Some of the positions are a little different.
Remind me of the day,
May 17th, Saturday, 9 to 12 at Purple Park.
Awesome.
So this is our first World Migratory Bird Day. Because we want to be dubbed as a bird city, which congratulations, we now are. I got approved. And right.
Thank you, Peter.
Yeah, Peter, Sandy, and everybody.
The title is what? Migratory
World Migratory Bird Day.
And our status is Bird City?
Bird City.
Yeah, Bird City USA?
Yes. Bird City USA. So it got approved this weekend. So that was a good email to read. And so this is certified by Environment of the Americas. And they said they wanted to attend this event since it's our first one and hand the signs, like, because there's like metal signs that they give to, so we can post it. And then a certificate and things like that to give it to like a town council member or something to like officiate like an announcement.
We put that.
I don't know.
Probably right alongside the Tree City ones. So we
Okay.
won't put a new posting, we'll use the same post, I think.
I don't know how they look like, so we just, I don't know the size or anything.
That's exciting.
There are signs. So, so there's that. So I need to incorporate that in the event to have that done for that announcement to be made. And then this same thing for signups for this. I sent out the invitations and I think I have like 8-9 vendors said they'll come already. I'm still waiting for a bunch more. And for this one, I will need your t-shirt size because they have a shirt for this event. If you're attending, even if you like a t-shirt and you're not attending, just still get you a shirt. And then write your name, t-shirt size, and then there's a list on the back saying if you're attending the event or not, just so I know who's showing up. And then also write something before you think you can help. There's some things on here that's different, like a bird walk, a group bird walk. I was listing that I wanted to do 2. Peter would be leading one of them and a maybe for the second one. But if you know anyone who's willing to do that, let me know. And also a bird presentation or a talk. If you know anyone who's like really into this stuff, who wants to like present and talk about birds, I'm welcoming them to, go and do that, to have that space.
Or will one of the vendors be the Birds of Prey Foundation?
Birds of Prey Foundation.
That's a great idea.
You can rehabilitate.
Is this the one in Broomfield?
Mhm.
Yes, I invited them,
Are
but
they
they
gonna
haven't
do,
confirmed yet.
are they gonna do National Trails Day too?
No, National Trail State is, Hawks Quest.
Okay.
Yeah, but they can't do, National Trail Day this year, because they're all booked. Yeah,
Bummer.
they're booked like really early. And
I have to do a standalone.
I know, so I'm reaching out to, there's like nature's educators down in Parker, Broomfield, I reached out to, I'm waiting for them, and there's one in Fort Collins as well, so I'm reaching out to a bunch of, I'm just waiting for their response. But, yeah, there's a few things that are different here other than the bird walk, and then there's, a scavenger hunt, if anybody's willing to help with that. If you choose to do the scavenger hunts, you're gonna be working with that with Peter, because he will help with the signage. So the whole idea of the scavenger hunts, and I thought this was really cool because they did in Lafayette, is they post around the ponds. It's like a bird ID card. So it shows like the bird, the species that live around here, and it shows like the name and all that stuff, information about it, what do they eat, where do they migrate, all that stuff. So Peter can help that person if you choose to work with him on that. But I think it'll be a fun family thing. Just want to find different ways to like engage kids and, get them excited, and parents. And so,
Would it be worthwhile to have a public showing of the movie Winged Migration? Have y'all seen that? Oh, it's fantastic. Yeah, it's all close-up pictures. They're taking in drones that were flying with the birds. It's beautiful photography of migratory birds. If you never cared about migratory birds before, you will after watch.
We'll have to look into the technology needs to do that.
That would have to be something probably done at the summer. I don't know if we can.
Winged migration.
Winged migration.
Years ago.
Okay. That would be done, I think, in the security center.
Oh.
If we were to screen something.
Oh,
Yes, but if it's a screening, I feel like
might be washed out.
it would be hard to view that and.
Great.
We'll think about it.
Guys.
Winged migration. Okay.
It'd be a cool thing for us to sponsor. I mean,
Yeah.
Even separately, and.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a sign up for your role. Let me know if you're attending, and then your t-shirt sizes on the back. I think that's all.
Migratory birthday,
Yeah.
just to make sure you're clear, I am not in town.
Yeah.
Peter will be doing both at the booth again.
Okay.
I'm gonna get him a volunteer to handle my report, my part.
Oh.
Yeah, that's fine.
Great, thank you. Next up is town council meeting issues, and in parentheses, we have dinner, because, well, first, our dinner with town councils in April. What day is that, Leslie?
14th.
April 14th. So that will be right after our OSAC meeting, which is good, right?
So the day of the week.
April
It's
14th.
a Monday, yeah.
Our,
I'm doing my wife's birthday. Doesn't matter because we'll do anything Monday, so.
and our meeting is the 9th. Okay, so we have time to talk about this. So the town council meeting issues is gonna stay a standard item. Because this will give us the opportunity to really talk about what does town council need to know. But first, just kind of brainstorm, what do we need to think about for dinner? In my mind, I'm thinking maybe a prairie dog discussion, I don't know, or do we want to save that for, and we're going up to town council since there are a lot of new members, I think it just,
just highlight the playbook.
And we can always send out ahead of time, so we can
Yes.
send out bullet points, like here are the topics that OSAC wants to cover, and if there's backup documentation, we can send that out.
Yeah, I don't think that needs to be like a huge.
Well, I mean, we usually get through how many topics?
4,
Yeah, 3 or 4. So I think,
and you should talk about budget, any asks, any budget asks or large resource, like you wanna ask for a resource. This is the best time to do it, and you can always follow up, but it's a great, face-to-face is a great time to do it.
well, let's talk about that. On, what is tops on our budget? I mean, we routinely put in, we would love to have another, support in terms of, I mean, we kicked around the idea of, I can't think of any, AmeriCorps.
And we actually have an opportunity to engage with AmeriCorps, but we don't have staff to facilitate, which is kind of sad, but we're tapped out. With the Boulder County Youth Corps, that really takes up most of Party's time for that, 7-8 weeks, 8 weeks, yeah.
What else has been top on our budget requests?
Do you have budget for, ADA Trail? Coyote Ridge Trail?
We have money in the budget this year for that, but
For planning or?
it's for both, the parking lot and the trail. So we'll see how far that money this year gets us, but, maybe be a little bit more open-ended and just say trail development or ADA trail development, if that's gonna be your focus. I mean, we have budget dollars for trail maintenance, but not necessarily trail building. So like the industrial mine trail that we put on the Boulder County, and we don't necessarily have funding for that. We might have a match, but we don't have full funding for that. And we would have to work with the county. Because a lot of that's on their property, but they have indicated support. But that, I would say don't nail yourself down too specific unless that makes sense. Like that's the spelling point, then great. But
What about just a general discussion of funding enhancements for open space acquisition? I feel like, that's sort of our primary role, and we don't talk about it very often, like what we're doing besides the open space tax. And not that council would, come up with ideas, but, and no, I don't know what the funding atmosphere is even like right now, but, I mean, we do have, like a grant person on staff, and we haven't really accessed that person. We've talked about in our group, like, having people explore the funding mechanisms, but I'm just wondering if a more general discussion of, what the board might find palatable in terms of us exploring, or is that too big? I don't know.
are you talking about more money for acquisition or money to enhance those properties once we acquire?
No, I was thinking about acquisition funding. Now that we're not asking the town board for that money, obviously, but I don't know. We don't really talk about that as much in our group, and what else we could be doing, what grants we could be pursuing.
So if there were private properties that all of a sudden became available, certainly we would go before town council and say, this is something that we would recommend, depending on the property. How would we do that?
Yeah, we're just if the
So maybe we should talk about the Saharius property.
That's kind of what I was thinking about saying.
I went by there today and the for sale sign kind of spoke to me. The clock is ticking. So let's say that owner, it's a bid on that property for some apartment complex or something in there. Our acquisition dollars or tax related acquisition dollars are tapped out.
They're tapped out for like the next 15 years.
Yeah, so,
Paying debt on.
Right.
so certainly that property is gonna sell to somebody, if not town, in the next 15 years. It's not gonna sit there for 15 years.
It's there for a long time.
We don't talk about that very often, right? I mean, if our goals are first and foremost to acquire open space. I mean, I think it might be an interesting discussion with the town board.
I mean, how's the town gonna react to? I mean, it seems like the town has to commit to buying that and committing to finding funding to buy that. Separate from the tax. Because to adopt a strategy that we're gonna wait 15 years till tax revenue is available again is a recipe for failure.
What about something along the lines of, giving this committee the blessing
Yes.
to work with our grants manager and with the conservation fund for
Yes.
future funding?
That's what I was.
Yeah.
And Leslie, in that hypothetical example, what if, again, hypothetical, general fund dollars are used to buy Zaharias? How do you then protect it as open space because it wasn't protected, it wasn't purchased with open space dollars?
The open space fund would eventually have to pay back the channel.
Right, and floating that purchase price for the next 15 years is gonna
Right.
put a huge
Well,
hole in it.
It's. I don't think it's possible, but the conservation fund does offer grants and they have funding, they do loans, maybe not that big. So there's some opportunity, but it would be good to give the council a heads up that you want.
Right, so yes, by general fund dollars. Does that preclude it being designated as open space?
I think it would make it very difficult to designate it as open space because general fund dollars are for the general public use and purchase for whatever goods and services that the town provides. And I think one could probably make a reasonable argument, well, it was purchased with general fund dollars and now there's a majority of the community that wants to see this other very specific use other than it preserved as open space. And so then I think we set up a really difficult conversation with the community about.
I think the lawyers would say that's a really slippery slope.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
Which I guess is a long way of saying, but I was still sure what I was.
But I think Leslie, what you were saying, like, you can just have the blessings too. So it's a little more like, you're saying land trust, I mean, go Colorado, there's resources out there, we just haven't had like the person or the mechanism to really, like, who would write.
And I can ask Brooke if she can come to the meeting on the 9th.
That
Just
would
to
be
get
great.
that kick started, so she also gets some awareness that you're gonna make that request.
Well, and I think it is so incredibly relevant because time goes by and we as a committee and we as a town forget that it was these efforts. The only reason why our town is Coyote Ridge.
Yep.
Is because they partnered.
It's a great point. And one, I was thinking along the same lines too, but I can't remember where we left the town 15 conversation. I know it was, we own it, it's zone commercial still, right?
Yeah.
And it kind of got put on hold sort of, because we made the proposal. I mean, is that something? I mean, that's a significant.
I think
when we bring that up and say.
I really
have
think we should talk
yeah.
about Town 15 and, I think that is completely.
There's a lot of public comment last meeting about that.
Because if there's anything that,
Yeah.
I mean, I totally understand that it is town property and it's not zoned open space. But I think our message has always been very consistent.
And we made a
We've got
recommendation.
recommendations and documents that date back as far as 2010,
Right.
on what we think about, and even 3 years ago with the Park and Rec Open Space Master Plan, that we're in Appendix D on what we think about Town 15.
And then we made the recommendation just last year, right?
Yes.
Again.
That was what the comment was about,
Yeah.
like, why do we keep bringing this up? Let us
Yeah.
answer the question.
So that's one we already own. and we could, and
Oh,
I
not
know
the
there's
only
no.
town entity speaking on Town 15, but the
That's
Parks Group has advocated park and rec use of that space.
Yeah, I mean, it's in
Still do
the plan, but nothing has been.
Yeah, and we can still do it. So.
No, I think it's always good to have this conversation. So last month I attended, town council meeting, and in public comment, there were a lot of residents, mostly along Andrews. There's some from Calmonte as well as Bristol. And it was an emotional plea to town council to not leave. And, you know, honestly, while I was sitting there, I thought maybe I should dust off what I read to town council 6 months ago on Town 15. But I really wanted town council to have that emotion resonate with them. So there is that aspect as well as the considerations that we have. But as our liaison, I gotta say, I mean, that's just something that's always gonna be on the top of our list and our focus until our town decides to rezone. It will be that way.
I think the town council can take that into the context of the comp plan. It'll be coming at the end of the year for review. So I think we're make that decision later this year. And I'll be totally honest, there are very few parcels of land in town that can be developed. And those pieces of land that can be developed are the very few opportunities we have to expand our sales tax base.
Yeah.
And so if we take Zaharias and Town 15 off the table, we only have 2 other parcels of land that can be developed. And that from an economic standpoint and making sure that the town still has healthy sales tax revenues 10, 15, 20 years from now, is a real balance. So these are some of the considerations that we're having to weigh. And they're not easy.
Yeah, it's hard though, to just see so much sitting in.
Yeah.
Right, that's where it's for.
And then, the one right there at Bloomfield, right across the mall.
Resolute?
Resolute, thank you. Yeah.
But we do have so much
And,
open capacity in Superior too, right?
And we have some community members that are looking at the 76 street property saying, make that open space, make that something that's not developed. And so again, there's a lot of competing interests.
Be a great because you know what I would hope to influence when town council makes these decisions is we have an annual document that the town's open space committee does every year, and I will tell you 76 is never at the top.
For open space.
Yeah, I get that, but I'm just saying as an influence, you have
Absolutely.
the town has this committee that looks at this all the time.
Yeah. And I think offering that perspective and that voice would be really.
That's good. And then the other topic is the one you brought up. I think we need to bring that up.
Habitat restoration.
Yeah.
I agree. Maybe a little bit more, especially for, you know, I know Mike is super familiar with it, but maybe just kind of an overview of like what we do on this committee and what we're about and leading into maybe that conversation of, hey, we're really serious about these things and we have been for working on them for years. So.
Yeah.
I think it would be lovely to give them a little show and tell of this at sea. Because, it's not necessarily public facing, but it really brings to life. What you all are doing.
Yes.
When I was there, I brought little garbage and recycling carts. And Ford was considering the waste compact last August and it got rave reviews, so.
That's awesome. Did you bring a little stinky one for composting?
Also, going back to land acquisition, don't forget, we have one in the queue.
Yeah.
Another one about the creek.
Down by Coal Creek.
Yeah. So that one is still targeted for 2026. We're still online.
So team, right now, what I'm hearing for the dinner is budget, prairie dogs, habitat restoration.
Yeah, and I didn't put budget, I put open space funding.
Yeah, let's call it, yeah, so, open space acquisition, so open space acquisition, town 15, prairie dogs, and habitat restoration. We don't have to
Yeah.
discuss order right now.
Sorry, can open space acquisition be twofold? Because I think it would be helpful to just run through our list, town 15 being one of the properties on our list, because I don't.
But we don't have to require that. That's, I was just thinking it was.
Oh, sure, yeah, okay, that makes, yeah. But sometimes I think just a refresher, like, hey, these are things on our list.
Yeah,
Not everybody knows that or remembers.
that's, yeah.
So
Yeah,
it could be our list plus the means and ways.
Yeah.
yeah, you're talking about the list where we all do the survey and rank the
Yeah,
properties. Yeah, and you're right,
Yeah.
15.
Priority acquisition slash, land use change.
So I just put including open space funding and acquisition priorities.
and maybe town 15's like, its own.
And it's, yeah, town 15, prairie dogs, habitat preservation, restoration, and succession adult.
So that becomes 4 topics. The only one that may be in a whisper we could throw out there, unless it's being worked, maybe would be open space management plan. That we're working on that.
Yeah, you could give a reminder that that's coming to them for their adoption approval.
Not to have huge discussion on it, but then, so I know we're running through lots of things. So that's kind of dinner topic.
Yes.
And we can come back to this on April 9th. But I also want the team to think about, so we have an amazing liaison to town council who gives updates before their meetings, right? That being said, are there any topics that as a committee we want to use as just again an influence time to approach and public comment during a town council? For instance, I was seriously thinking about this last month. Do we need someone to stand up during public comment and read kind of our canned town 15, why it's so important to open space? That could be, a 5-minute read. And I think Tracy, you hit something right on the nose are there any upcoming topics that town council is going to be looking at that bear relevance for us to then tee up public comment?
I think maybe we count on our liaison to help, or town staff to help us identify issues that might be relevant to us.
Actually, that's a great question for the dinner too.
Okay, let's do that.
Yeah.
Because I don't personally think that there's anything urgent right now. I don't feel, whereas we have in the past saying we need to get in front of town, town 15 in front of the committee now or council now. I don't feel that sense of urgency, but again, this might be something that we put on our OSAC standing items. So we can say, this issue has us really jazzed and we want to make sure, and it's not necessarily negative. We want the town council to know the great work that is going on here that our liaison might present, but we want the town council to see our faces. These are the amazing professionals behind the scene who are doing great things for the town. So let's come back to that since there's not an urgency, but that's kind of, I think that's something I think we need to think about. We'll make that as a.
I think it's a great thing to put in our agendas, hey, we want to have more interaction. How do we? So
Yes.
It doesn't have to be a huge discussion, but be great.
And the town manager usually sends out kind of a weekly digest to the council Friday afternoons, and often that there's a section that includes like, look ahead for the next couple of council meetings. So that might be an opportunity for me to share, hey, there's this thing coming up in May that might be relevant. So that could be your time you want to show up.
If you could do that, I think that'd be super helpful because otherwise we have to watch everything that comes out, right? Which is good for us, but I'm not necessarily doing it. I'll own that. But you have to do that.
So in April, there's going to be an Arbor Day proclamation.
There's gonna be a World Migratory.
World Bird Day proclamation, goat grazing agreements.
I tried to push that.
Oh, yeah, okay. So I think those would be two really good examples of where percent could show up and.
That's great.
I think we need to use that public comment, but when we do it, we have to do it, you know, with the consensus of the meeting, right? So it's
And the Coyote Ridge parking lot's also tentatively scheduled for April.
awesome.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Lots of opportunities.
Sounds good.
Okay, fantastic. Okay, let's move on, because I know we are kind of pushing our agenda time here. Rodenticide campaign plan policy recommendation. Do we have any updates on where we stand with this?
We have opened up conversation with the town pest vendor, so they're going back, looking through their current protocol and seeing what they can change or what needs to be changed, so hopefully we'll get a recommendation on that.
And did you say the town pest vendor? Okay. So tell me too, sorry, I got that. What is this?
Notes
I'm doing
at the
notes
same
at the same time, yeah. Okay, so where we stand is that council didn't necessarily bless our proposal, but they gave you permission to go work with staff on a communication plan, is that correct?
They received your information.
Yes.
I think it was brought up, I think,
Jason.
yeah,
Councilmember Serbu actually mentioned it in his.
so that was brought up. I took the initiative to talk to, our staff who oversees that contract, because obviously if we're promoting this among residents, we need to walk the talk. So, making sure that we take a look internally at our processes for that.
Okay.
So that's kind of where we're at.
So two questions related to that, not specific to that. What about like engagement with Kevin? I know there's been a little bit of, but I guess I've missed it and my bad, right? I mean, but obviously don't see everything.
Yeah, and
Is there a way we can get them, you know, like a little summary and here's some of the posts that have gone out or just something?
I think he just did one that's pretty general about,
I heard about
the chain of, you know, the food chain and how it impacts and, you know, be careful, but I'll ask him to send out a copy to you all and to rerun that again. Maybe we can do it like every other month or something else.
That would be wonderful.
Cause I did talk to Kevin and asked him like, do we want to make a plan on how we can progress this? Like,
Yes.
a schedule or something of like, oh, maybe a topic each post or that focuses on one thing or, so he's up for that.
Okay.
Just let me know what you would need.
I mean, I guess I want to know what he needs, right? Because
It's more of just the content and then they'll find different ways to source, like push it out.
so I guess, let's say the content obviously is a very broad thing. Does he want to know, does he want me or someone to define, here are the 5 things, the messages that we'd like to get out? I mean,
Similar to like what we did with the bike and etiquette, totally different topic, but we kind of parsed it out.
right.
Different smaller topics.
That's what, yeah, so
Put it out.
Let me send it to you all again, so you can see what's there and see what you think the next drill down is. Like, okay, what's the more specific message, and maybe it's 3 different ones or whatever, or maybe, I don't know, time of year makes a difference on what you wanna talk about.
it could be by season. It could be by season, like however you want to organize it, he's open to that if it makes sense with the plan that you want to push out.
Okay, so he's waiting for something from us, which I guess I didn't know that. So yes, okay, we will put some thoughts together on what types of things would make sense to communicate. All right.
And then, so also, I know just walking around, sometimes we see poison boxes, for example, right? And I'm thinking one in particular, and I haven't seen it today.
Oh, it was there just the other day.
Okay. But that being said, speaking with Leslie during pre-meeting, we still can do the click it, fix it. And so,
Is that what I should do?
so
Is that, Identified box, it's still
Is-
sitting
is
outside
that
that.
still there?
There's three of them outside the property.
I've asked like times for somebody to go pick that up, but they have.
I mean,
Where's,
that's on my walk and then next thing on Rock Creek and it just been, no, it's just right in my box.
Is this on,
It's on time.
It's just off of El Dorado,
It's on town.
it's on town property.
But-
It's just
we
your
didn't put
neighbors
it
down
out.
from you.
But it's residents putting it out.
We don't know who put it out.
We
The
have to
assumption
assume.
is it's
Yeah,
that house.
that's homeowner.
The end one that's vacant still?
No,
Oh,
other side, the path that goes down towards community park at the other end,
I know which word.
didn't burn.
So anyway, if we're walking and we see things like that, just like with any resident, we can click it, fix it to highlight attention.
And I believe you can, put in your coordinates if you.
Yes, you can drop point.
Oh, you can,
That,
yeah.
that is often really
Okay.
helpful, because sometimes you'll look at a picture and it's like.
What is that? Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right, well, let's move on to our round table. Tracy, do you have anything for the team?
Okay. Round table items, that can be later. So there was one suggestion that came in, for an educational program, because I know you're just looking for things. Yeah, the fears that people have of wildlife, I mean, so, you know, like, how we can dissuade,
Address them.
address them, yes. So anyway,
Fears?
yeah, address fears of.
Oh, my goodness, yeah.
Lions and tigers and bears.
Oh, my, there's a coyote in community park. Oh, my.
She has one hair, such.
Yeah.
Yes.
I don't know. I think communications, we just gotta have more communication out about it.
Keep at it.
So addressing fears of wildlife, just how to approach, or like, how do we?
I think yeah, if we can educate people more, they will probably not be as afraid. And so I think it's just all about that education to take some, and it could even apply to snakes, right? I mean.
Can it be,
very much-
can it just be a should it, are they asking for a program? Are they asking, can it be communication pushed out by our comms team?
The request was a program. I don't think it has to be. I think any sort of education is better than nothing, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, then, we're gonna talk about Coyote Ridge, don't have to do that. We talked about the rodenticide. Okay, so here's a personal thing that isn't real, I'm not sure if it's OSAC or not, but some of it might borderline on OSAC. We've got all these gas leaf blowers out there blowing away leaves and everything, and it's way too early, right? We're killing all of the native pollinators.
Are
And
you talking about in the park areas?
a lot of it's in park areas, a lot of it's in the corridors. But it's a big thing you read about these days that you're killing pollinators if you get rid of things too early.
So it's not just that they're gas, but that they're blowing.
Blowing. They're
That ground cover.
We need kind of a campaign along the lines of don't mow your lawn until after May, right?
and don't clean up your weeds in your beds
Yes.
until April at least, you know, and I feel like the town, that's something the town should be thinking about too. Because I know like Alex, he's a big pollinator guy, right? But we have a lot of native pollinators and insects that are living in all of this.
I think there's some pretty good material out there on. I don't know if it's Resource Central maybe has some things about leaving your leaf bed in place and, you know, I think there's gonna be a little less tolerance for that on town property,
I think,
but
there are certain places like I noticed.
places that are not visible.
Well, that was one, I guess, that really got me to write this down, is they were doing it behind one of the walls. I mean, nobody could even see, right? There were like 3 eyes with blowers up there, blowing everything away. And it's like, nobody can even see that, and yet, no telling how many.
I hate blowers.
I do too. That's a whole nother issue.
Yeah.
They're also not environmentally very sound.
We can address that.
But anyway, I'm ready, put that out. Okay,
Yeah.
thank you, that's all.
If you're the guy blower, it's gonna blow.
Yeah.
Jeff,
It's a
do
power
you
tool.
do you have anything for the round table, Jeff?
No, I don't.
Rita, how about you?
No, I don't have anything.
Okay, Leslie,
Nothing.
Ari?
That's what I was looking up. I can't remember the thing that I forgot earlier, but this came up, just as a reminder. When Casey was here last month, he talked about the next workshop was focused more for Louisville and Superior residents. So the Firewise workshop, that's at the Louisville Rec Center, April 8th. It's on their website if you want to learn more, but this is focused towards residents here. And then I'm talking about pollinators and gardening and all that stuff. Fantastic. Thanks. Christy?
I don't have anything.
We'll talk about the Coyote Ridge. Maybe we can, certainly if you want to. Mike and I met for the Coyote Ridge Subcommittee this year. To think about work plan for our group of two for the year. We started by taking the Coyote Ridge master plan and listing all the recommendations. So we've got a concise list of all the actionable items out of the master plan.
Awesome.
We sat down and we met earlier this week and talked about some of those recommendations. Thought we should probably prioritize safety and wildlife enhancement. We thought about building out a multi-year work plan if it was helpful for you, so that we could do planning both for staffing and for dollars, multiple years. We also thought, I'm speaking for myself, I'd like to be involved in the development up on the parking lot ADA trail, since that's kind of the first enhancement. What else did we?
Yeah, I think it's mostly like if there's a safety issue, if there's an erosion issue that we need to deal with, or there's wildlife concern, like those are probably the three. But the thought was if we start to prioritize some work, it might correspond with funding needs. So for example, if we say, gee, we need to redevelop this straight line trail into something that goes like this, you know, we want to get that in prep it so that if we do need funding to do something or to set up volunteer work to do it, that we have to execute around these things.
I think that's fabulous, and it might even play into some of our youth projects.
Exactly.
This is great. And I mean, Coyote Ridge is now going to be a standing update. So maybe every month you can kind of get an idea of the brainstorm.
I know Open Space Mountain Parks has done a great job of taking straight line trails and making them into these nice meandering things that don't have erosion. So I think there's lessons to be learned that we could take to Coyote Ridge.
There's definitely some corrections.
There's some
that
straight
are
line
needed.
stuff.
Do we have any guidance on how much traffic we'd like to see in Coyote Ridge? I'm thinking the same thing with the other areas too, but to me, this was always a question I wanted
I
to ask firsthand. Do we want to stimulate more or less?
we don't have the capacity to monitor trail activity.
We can look into trail counters. I don't know that we can control it, but we can measure it. And
Right.
Which is a first step.
which is the first step, and we can look into trail counters. We've looked into it before. There's lots of options of ways to do that.
Once that parking lot goes in there, it's gonna drive more use.
I think the focus isn't really driving more utilization, it's just managing it, right? So that it doesn't approach on wildlife, doesn't have erosion issues, doesn't have safety issues, right? So it's not so much the thought process isn't how do we bring more people? That may happen, like I've said, but that's not the first thought process. It's really just managing something that the town owns, and so that we can take care of it.
I'm thinking that anytime we put time and money into any particular project in open space, that it's worthwhile, and I'm not totally sure why, but it's worthwhile to know what effect that has on people's use of that open space.
Good point. Do you have any other open or roundtable items? Mike?
I was gonna mention briefly, we had a subcommittee for the Marshall Fire Remembrance.
Who was one of the speakers?
Myself and Dalton.
You did an amazing job.
Yeah, because Andrew, who's leading the group, had to be called out of town. But anyway, got a chance to present this to the town staff and council. And the expectation was really just to say, do we agree with the general direction where we're headed with this thing? Can we get some funding just to do feasibility, not for the project, but just to say, can we even do a proposal in this location? So that went well. That there's a slide deck I can share with those that are interested. But it was well supported. So I just wanted to bring that up. So that was a good milestone because I think that subcommittee's been in place for like over a year.
January, our first meeting was
30 surveys that went out to the public to get their feedback on what they wanted to see. So we tried to bring that all through into a concept and just got buy-in from the town staff.
And specifically, we got approval to go do like a design.
We got,
Right?
correct.
That's all. Yeah. It's great. Yeah, good job.
That was, yeah, we're very happy. That's all.
Couple of things. So on February 10th, the council passed a resolution reaffirming the town's position to oppose the Rocky Mountain Greenway Trail because of all the contamination. We shared that with Boulder County commissioners. And so we'll see where that goes, but the town is officially on record opposing that. At last night's, Monday's council meeting, we took action to approve a design firm to evaluate options for the north and south pool. There's going to be some community meetings in May, and so Leslie and Dean are going to be, and Brandon are going to be super busy working with those design teams and trying to get a lot of community feedback. We also took action to approve a design contract. We'll work with Kinley Horn for the Rock Creek Parkway road work between Indiana and 88th. And there was a community meeting on February 20th where 65+% of the meeting participants favored a roundabout at Coal Creek Drive. And so that was part of the design consideration that council approved on Monday night based on that community feedback. And then we also approved a construction contract for the Rock Creek Parkway head bridge that goes into the park. It's dilapidated, and there's a lot of lighting concerns and things like that. And so we're going to get all that cleaned up and fixed. And then we also received an update on sustainability efforts that are being considered for the new parks and operations maintenance facility that's going to be located next to the wastewater treatment. So, yeah. Long, I think it went until 11:47 p.m. So
Have one go back.
Yes.
Mile High Flood District is gonna be working on some of our ponds, which are not necessarily directly in open space, but you will see. They're gonna start working at this one down near the firehouse, the end of March. They basically are digging it out and recreating the channel all the way back up to the structures upstream, so they have good flow there. It's gonna be a little messy, it might be a little stinky, but in the beginning, sorry.
My HOA, member, the HOA board, Almonte, asked me about that. Can I share that information?
Yes, we are gonna put out some social media posts and let folks know what's going on there, because there will be heavy equipment in there. And right now, it's kind of like two little bodies of water that are mostly cattails and it's supposed to be one big one. And then it feeds through that drainage, so they're gonna clear the gunk out of it. It's not even that, it's like a culvert almost, drainage channel.
Which one is this?
That's the one down by the firehouse.
Okay,
Yeah.
And then in the fall, they're gonna hit the one up on 88th and prompt, like what?
Yeah.
Last week of March.
Yes,
I don't think.
and I don't have a finer timeline on the other one for the fall, but that one is, in pretty bad shape. It's pretty well silted in, so.
Because they're not a lot of left in there even.
You know, it's interesting, the birds really like the cattails, and
Yeah.
wherever we have cattails,
Yeah.
there's the red winged blackbird.
yeah, they love it.
We had a conversation with them because we have quite a few of these detention ponds. And they really retain, a lot of them retain water, and they don't necessarily need to be functional, but that's what residents have become accustomed to. And when we were walking around some of these up, south of Rock Creek Circle, there's a lot of water, there's ducks back, it's really nice. But they do have to keep the spillways open, so they have to go in there and do some dredging or pulling out of the cattails every, 10 years or something, so. But they're hitting those two spots this year.
And the only thing I have for roundtable is more of a question. How much longer do we have the goats? And then when will they be coming back for the summer?
Great question. We just put out the RFP for the summer, which is the FEMA funded grant for goat grazing. That'll be for the next 3 summers, 100 days each summer. So that will go out. It's, we're crossing our fingers. We'll see who presents a proposal for us. They have to go through several more hoops because it is federally funded, funding source, but that will keep us in goats for 100 days every summer for the next 3 years. And then the county has funded us every cool season beginning this year. So this current grazing right now is funded through the strategic fuel mitigation grant through the county. We applied for 3 years, we got it for 3 years. The goats will be here through the end of March. And they have a couple other engagements. They have to get them all vaccinated. They do all that stuff during that break time. And then they'll probably start in June-ish for the 100 days in the summer. It may not be continuous. We may have some gaps in there.
It's also strategic mitigation funds. That's the wildfire mitigation tax that voters in Boulder County passed back in 2022.
Yeah.
So
in theory, that doesn't sunset, but we have to apply for it every 3 years. So the federal dollars go away after 3 years. They're completely gone. So.
Awesome. Well, I figured in the summary and probably even in our notes, we'll say something about how the goats are here until the end of March.
Perfect.
And they'll be back.
And can I, since this is my first official OSAC meeting, what I shared during the OSAC roundtable, was that appropriate, or were you
I
expecting
think it's
something
wonderful.
else? No. Okay, helpful. Okay.
Yeah. And I think as we build these synergies, like when we were talking about with approach town council more often, what I'm hoping that we'll also do is say, the town needs OSAC to do this. I mean, kind of like what we're seeing, Ari, you saying this is going on, but I need your help. Sign up. Yeah, no,
And I also want to be really sensitive about telling OSAC what to do, because you are residents, you've been appointed, and so the council looks at OSAC and or other advisory committees as subject matter experts and with input and ideas, and I think we want to be open to receiving that information. So I don't want to feel like I'm directing the committee in
that's sensitivity, but we're partners.
Yeah.
Well, and we also, I don't think you'll find we're shy. Lisa hasn't become already a.
That's spot on, and actually there are a lot of things that we might not know about.
Right.
Thank you. Okay, so we're moving into our reminders section of the agenda. Standing updates, we've already talked about Rocky Mountain Greenway. This is an update on our raptors and our wildlife.
I did not get a raptor update from Peter this month, and I obviously you guys usually get those too. So I realized today that I did not have that for you. So sorry. But I do have other updates that are for both programs. Talking about just keeping the sit side. We met with Boulder County Animal Control and showed them sit side and talk to them about the programs. So they are actually now on SITSI, so they can see what's being reporting.
Okay.
Which I think is really cool. And it's just nice to have them as partners in this whole process. So, that
Was you and Peter?
yes.
Yeah.
Yep. And then for the camera, so we have moved the camera to, it's down in original town. We haven't had a lot of that activity, unfortunately, we put it in one day and they started cutting down trees right there the next day. And there was a pair of coyotes, paired coyotes, that were living, I don't know, maybe 50 yards away. We have not seen them since. So don't know where they went, but somewhere else is my guess. And so we've seen a couple of raccoon down there, but that's about it. But if you guys want access to the camera, you're still welcome to get that. You just send me an email. You have to download the Moultrie app. So if you want access, you need to go to the Moultrie website, download the app, and then tell me what email you used, and I will send you an invite to their camera. I think that's the bulk of it. But I mean, both programs, Raptors is a little, as you saw last one, they've got all kinds of things. They're spotting the nests. There's lots of work going on right now. And I have about 31 observations in SITSI for the wildlife program, since the beginning of the year. So lots of things happening. Yeah.
Please convey to the team that they're doing amazing stuff.
Will do.
Every night there's a great horned owl that perches on the townhouse across the alleyway from me, and well.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Yeah.
Trail etiquette, this is a standing update. Does it need to be?
I don't think it really needs to be. I think what we agreed to do is at this appropriate time of year, we start to reintroduce the same topics like we did before, like pets on the trail or, what have you. I think we broken them like 3 or 4 categories last time. I would suggest that we do that. I don't think the message really changes much from year to year. Kind of the same.
Yeah, we still have signs on order, so when I get those in, I might ask for help on where we wanna put them.
I think they're we remove it as a standing update, but if there's something that we need to know about, we can put it on an agenda.
I think as long as we have, is there a reminder for the comm team to push things? That's the only thing.
I was just gonna say, I talked to Kevin about it because they have the open space thing for the Hello Superior for summer. And they said they're gonna focus on 3 more of those signs. So I think the last issue they focused on 3, and then they're gonna do 3 more that's more related to summer, like reminders before the summer.
Yeah, as long as they have it on there to do seasonally.
It's all right, yeah.
I would think that's in this maybe for a later time too, is I've seen biking in other places where they'll say, no class 3 e-bikes allowed on this trail. So it's a differentiator between.
We're doing an issue on that this summer about the class E, the B bikes.
Because generally when you hear people upset or complaining, it's not a class 1 or 2.
It's usually a 3.
And so I think there's some awareness that probably needs to be brought around that too. Maybe that can be added into some of the communications around trail etiquette. There's a big difference between those class and the way they engage.
The layout that we have, I talked to him a couple weeks ago, was just a breakdown. It's similar to what Louisville did. So we're gonna do like a diagram of like, this is what a class 1 is. This is what a class 2 and 3.
Yeah.
These 1 and 2 are allowed on like regional trails, like, Colton, Meadowlark and stuff. 3 is on the road and wear a helmet, 16 up, things like that. So we're gonna break all that down for people because that's a big issue that's gonna happen.
It's an education thing.
It's an education thing, yeah.
Good.
Will the schools be involved in that in any way?
We can,
Not that.
solicit their participation and give them the information. Last year, we went to Bike to School Day, and if we show up and hand stuff out, they're fine with that, and the sheriff's office will put it. But they don't have a lot of capacity to do anything more than that. It's kind of tough.
I think coordinate that at the beginning of the school year when it starts kicking off.
And wildfire update, Christie.
No, I was just gonna thank the town for the goats. It's been very entertaining. I had Bluebird to my neighbors just rebuilt the other night, and his wife used to be on open space, I guess, for years, and she since passed away, and he was just thrilled. So he just moved in on El Dorado. He's a big ranch. That
Oh,
big ranch. So yeah, that was great. We were all there. Everyone loved it on El Dorado, so that was great. And then I saw we cut down some trees along the fences there, which is good. They weren't things that get out of control. So, I mean, I think those are gonna come back every year, so we're probably gonna have to think about what we trim them every year or what, but otherwise, I don't think so. I think that's it.
Yeah. Prairie dog update.
Nothing.
We talked a bit about Coyote Ridge. Is there anything else that we need to add? I like your ideas. Let's talk more about
Yeah,
that.
it's gonna, the work plan, so we can start to schedule like the course of action.
Can I just, yeah, sorry, unrelated, but let's just go ahead and remove this at site update because I think it's part of either Raptor or wildlife, right? I mean, it's all very integrated. And then Coyote Ridge, I was really glad to hear that just because I feel like, the big thing that we've been hearing about is the parking lot. And there were a lot of environmental habitat kinds of issues that I really feel like we need to be pushed on. So
Can I come back to a comment? One of the two of you made right at the start of the meeting. As I was thinking about Coyote Ridge, I was thinking about Youth Corps as a labor force for removing all the barbed wire that's in Coyote Ridge or doing some of the trail building. Yeah, that's one. And you made the comment that we only have capacity for a single youth corps. We could probably have more, but we don't have supervisory.
We had two groups that reached out to us to give us free services for fire mitigation. Which is all under AmeriCorps is Mile High, Teens Inc. But I have to tell them that.
Is there anything we can do to
manage
advocate for
Budgeting, we need to have the town hire some people.
a part-time, a summer person to serve as a second supervisor or something?
But it can't be a volunteer, it has to be a
Yeah.
staff.
Is there any, I think that is a real bottleneck problem that doing a lot of things.
I mean, it's a problem of being a small town. We have limited resources and, but it really is painful when you're giving away free stuff, but we've done so much volunteer work and coordination and having youth corps in the summer that we just.
But I think as a committee, we can continue to influence town council, because if we can remember, it was only about 3 years ago, we didn't even have a park ranger.
Yeah. And we did ask for,
It's always on the budget list.
Yeah, so, I mean, I think that's perfectly acceptable to talk about when you talk about budget and resources.
We're turning down because we don't have capacity.
Is there any capacity for a summertime temporary hire? They can serve that supervisory role to give.
I mean, it's always, good stepping stone or,
Yeah, it's not a permanent solution. I recognize it.
It's not a full-time person costs a lot of money because you have to pay benefits. As seasonal is a much more affordable option. So absolutely. What were you going to say?
I was gonna say, I think it was like a work session 2 weeks ago. Town staff presented some like future staffing forecasts of like what the staffing looks like today, what it could look like in 5 years, and what it could look like in 10 years. And just from my own personal experience and seeing the significant increase in the number of events that the town puts on, and you've seen the KLR running like as thin as ice all throughout the summertime. And so I personally recognize that, okay, well, if we want to be able to maintain and retain really good, high quality staff, we can't stretch them so thin to like, I gotta get out of here to be working 100 hours a week. So I acknowledge that something's gotta give, that there's gotta be some relief. And so making those smart decisions, there's also the issue of they sit. We hear a lot that we're bursting at the seams and we don't have enough seating capacity. And so that starts this whole larger conversation of our residents are demanding a lot more in services and amenities. And how do we deliver those?
I'm glad we're gonna be able to talk about budget.
Was that late in that 5-year or 10-year conversation that included open space managers?
I don't remember
Yes.
exactly.
It's.
Yeah, I just remember there was like. I
It's
think
in there
it-
as a projected need.
Yeah, I don't remember the exact numbers, but in 10 years, we're forecasted to increase staff by 50% in order to meet future demand. And then obviously that then gets down to, well, if we don't have the money to do that, what programs do we have to start saying no to?
To cut back.
Yeah.
Like the youth court groups, I had to cut back. Like I can't.
Because
It's not sustainable.
you don't have
Yeah.
hours in the week to get everything done that's being asked of you. And I recognize that I want to make sure everybody's got a nice work-life balance, and it's nice to go home and see your spouse at a reasonable hour, and so.
Am I barking up the wrong tree? Is a temporary
You are-
support person?
You are saying absolutely the right things.
And I think
It has to be
I
funded.
think in the context of
Yeah.
what we've talked about earlier tonight for the town council dinner. Yeah, I think it's totally reasonable.
We can come back. It's great. Great. Two more items on our agenda, team, just two more. Two more, we have, grant asks and community update, communications. Do we have anything that we want to discuss on those two topics?
Well, I'm gonna invite Brooke to come to the April 9th meeting and
Yeah.
talk about grant asks. So if anybody has specific things, you could even send them ahead of time so she can put her eyes on them.
Okay.
She's one person doing a lot of things, but she's super, super good. She's really talented.
And anything for communications update?
I think we just talked a number of things, but yeah.
Okay. All right, well, we got through our March meeting. Thank you everyone for the amazing work that you are doing behind the scenes. It's just incredible to work with you all. So with that, our meeting is adjourned at 8:24. And we'll see you next month.
Thanks.
Busy here.
Bye, everybody.